The Queen needs a new husband, Lord Donald thought to himself. There was no denying that of all the lords present in the room, he viewed himself as the worthiest of this honor. But there was only one problem. He was a married man. They all were. And so he had trouble understanding the intention behind Jordan's proposal.
Jordan, we may have forgotten that the Queen will be needing a new husband, but you seem to have forgotten that all of us are married.
Lord Jordan raised an eyebrow as Donald looked to Barack and Joe for approval, but there was none to be found. Barack simply rolled his eyes while Joe shook his head.
You mistake me, my lord. Though I have no doubt that you would make for a fine suitor for our queen, I did not mean to suggest that any of you marry her. Your sons, on the other hand—
Donald shifted in his seat.
Of course, I knew that. And we all know whose son is best suited,
he said, and proceeded to stare intently at Barack and Joe as if his eyes were attempting to pierce straight through them.
I wholeheartedly agree with you, Lord Donald. Hunter is sure to sway the Queen with nothing but a smile.
Joe grinned, while Barack shrugged and raised his hands.
And there's no need to look at me. I have no sons, only daughters.
You don't fool me, Barack. I am sure you can work some witchcraft from your homeland to remedy that problem.
Lord Barack's skin was of a darker complexion, which had given Lord Donald the indication that he was not truly from Great America. On one occasion, he suggested that all births should be documented in the great archives of Washington, a suggestion which was met with ridicule by the other great lords, with the exception of Lord Mark Zuckerberg, who had an unhealthy obsession with the minute details of other people's lives.
I've lived here my entire life, Donald, and so did my parents and their parents before them.
Barack responded unenthusiastically before shifting his attention to Lord Jordan.
I must admit I am somewhat puzzled, Lord Jordan. You are unmarried and at high standing with King Abraham. Why come to us with this suggestion and not simply pursue Queen Mary yourself?
Lord Jordan smiled, though Lord Donald could not discern whether it was one of amusement, genuine happiness, or even that of someone who had just been insulted. His eyes were stoic and flat, looking like they never really woke up after a night's sleep, and so his face did not leave much to be interpreted with regard to human emotion.
Is it not obvious I am lowborn, honored only with the title of lord and a family named by the king himself? What hope could I possibly have of courting the queen?
A fair point. For a queen to remarry was unheard of in itself, but to remarry with a lowborn would be an even greater scandal, sure to incite nothing but chaos throughout the realm. Even still, Lord Joe did not seem all too convinced that Jordan's proposal was made with good intentions.
But is that not precisely what King Abraham would have wanted? For the Queen to marry someone whose name would bear no weight, so that she could raise their children as Lincolns?
Lord Jordan raised his eyebrows, managing to convey shock through his lifeless eyes.
Not at all, my lord. It is imperative that the lord she marries be of a house of high standing, one who commands great respect among the other lords, with vast swaths of lands and a sizable army to secure his position.
Lord Donald did not pay much attention to what Jordan was saying as he was caught up on what Joe had said before him. Raise their children as Lincolns, he thought to himself. Somehow the notion of marrying the Queen had made him forget that such a deal would come with a heavy toll for his family name. And so there was no doubt in his mind that Jordan had ulterior motives.
I must applaud you, Jordan. You almost had us,
said Lord Donald with a cheeky grin on his face. If not for the murderous stare that accompanied this grin, one could mistakenly interpret it as a sign of approval.
You gathered us here to feed us hope that one of our sons would be king, but conveniently forgot to mention that it would doom any of our houses in the process.
Lord Jordan sat there silently, his hands folded on the table, looking from one lord to the other. He was examining them all, of that much Donald was certain. But examining them for what? Did Donald's comment really warrant such an extensive probing of their characters? What are you up to? What are you thinking? Lord Donald wondered. Finally, Lord Jordan's eyes settled back on Donald.
It would only doom your houses if the children are raised as Lincolns.
The hairs on Donald's neck raced toward the ceiling. He was no stranger to inappropriate comments, being the maker of many himself. But this was a step too far, even for him. And by the looks of it, Barack and Joe had not responded any better either, who had both seemingly lost the ability to keep their jaws shut.
What you suggest, Jordan, to disregard the king's command is high treason.
Oh, there is no doubt about that. Unless, of course, the new king were to decree that King Abraham's words are no longer law. It is only treason if King Abraham figures it out before his death.
Lord Barack showed no signs of relenting, and why would he? With no sons and being a married man himself, he had no stake in the game. There was nothing for him to gain through this betrayal, and so he kept pressing.
You think a throne is worth more than our vows to the king? I wonder what he will do to you when I bring him news of this betrayal in the morning.
Barak said with a stern face. He was an honorable man, and Lord Donald found it rather brave of Jordan to propose such a heinous plot to one such as him. But Jordan did not seem all too concerned with Barak's unwavering loyalty, nor did he blink at the threat of exposure.
What do you have to gain from this, Jordan? Do you not owe everything you have to King Abraham? Why would you seek to undermine him?
Lord Jordan shifted in his seat, lost in ponderous thought. Did he finally see the error of his ways, Lord Donald wondered? Perhaps he regretted bringing up the issue to the three of them. Or maybe he was thinking of something unrelated entirely. It was difficult to make out through that blank face. But one thing was certain, though. There was some semblance of sadness in his eyes. That much Donald could tell.
Peace, my lord. I stand to gain peace.
Lord Joe squinted, his mouth slightly open. It was evidently not an answer he had expected, and Lord Jordan seemed to have taken note of this.
It is true that I owe his grace a great deal, everything, even, as you put it. But what he wishes to do, to succeed the throne to Queen Mary, is a decision I cannot support. He is knowingly plunging the realm into chaos and refuses to find another solution, despite my greatest efforts to persuade him. You said so yourself, Lord Barak, that the other great lords would never accept this decision.
Jordan turned to Barak, and for the first time that night, Barak seemed to have lost confidence. Gone was the look of superiority that accompanied his threat towards Jordan only moments later, replaced with the look of one not wanting to come to terms with the inevitable.
But there must be another way, one without the need to betray House Lincoln.
A smidgen of hope was uttered from Lord Barak, but Lord Jordan simply shook his head and rose from his chair. He wandered around the room, stopping at one of the windows, observing the city far below White Castle.
When you are growing a garden, my lord, every now and then you must pluck out the weeds to prevent the flowers from dying. Although King Abraham has been the brightest flower in the garden for decades, I fear he has finally become one of those weeds. I love him as a friend, and it pains me to betray him like this, believe me. But if the choice stands between preserving an already dead house or continued peace for the realm, then I choose the realm.
Lord Barak was left sitting there with his eyes anchored to the table. He did have a stake in the game. Although his family would never sit the throne, there could be no denying that peace was absolutely the preferable option to war. Lord Jordan had stopped staring out the window, instead having turned to lean over the table, looking each of them in the eyes, one after the other.
I suppose the only question is who will ultimately marry the queen. Will it be Hunter or Barron? Or someone else, perhaps?
Once again, the three lords looked at one another. There was no need to exchange words. They all knew what had to be done. House Lincoln must fall.